This is a solving video where we're going to have to use the inverse button on the calculator at the end. And it does have an identity and the algebra that, so every time you step up a notch, it incorporates everything previously. So you can see my example, cotangent x equals 3 cosine x. And this is sometimes a clue for the identities, is having different trig functions with each other. So in this case, nothing is squared. So I'm not going to use a Pythagorean identity. I'm using the quotient identity for cotangent. And then I'm multiplying by the sign to get it over on the right. And then I'm going to move the cosine over to the right by subtracting, and I'm setting it up for factoring. So I used an identity and then an algebra step, and it turns into something we did a couple of videos back. I've got two cosines separated by the minus, so I factor out the cosine, set each factor equal to 0. So cosine x equals 0 and sine x equals 1/3. So cosine x is 0. That's something off the unit circle, a quadrantal angle, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. 1/3, however, is not one of the numbers we associate with sine and those special angles. So we're going to have to use the inverse button. And this is extremely important when we get to vectors. So this is a good thing. You've got a couple of WebAssign lab manual practice for this. But it's gonna play a predominant role when we get to vectors in a week or so. So 1/3 positive, quadrant 1 and 2. One of the things I'd recommend is, even if it's negative, when you use the button on the calculator, just do the positive value so that you can use it as a reference angle. Now you have to pay attention to the quadrants, because as you can see from my diagram, how you're going to find the answer, which I never actually write down here. So that's not the final answer. I'm skipping ahead here. Okay, so positive, quadrant 1 and 2. Even if the 1/3 were negative, I would type it in the calculator as a positive number so that the calculator answer is positive angle in quadrant 1 to use as a reference angle. I will then use that to find the correct answer in the appropriate quadrants. So in this case, sine inverse 1/3, that is quadrant 1. That's where that answer is. Now you should actually write out the decimal. I forgot that in my hurry to do these videos. So I am talking slowly and typing in my calculator. And that's not right. Yes, that's, oh, I've got to make sure your mode is in radians. We always do the solving with radians. Some of these videos I have forgotten to say in that interval like I did before, but it's always 0 to 2 pi, 1 unit circle, radian measure. We never do this with degrees. So check your calculator mode is in radians, and then sine inverse 1 divided by 3. So the final answer for that first one, quadrant 1, would be 0.3398. However many decimals the instructions say. Because it's in quadrant 2, you can see what I'm doing here in my diagram. Quadrant 2, that reference angle is going to be subtracted from pi. So in the calculator, where is pi? I don't see it on this calculator. It's because I'm using a TI-30. Let's get the right calculator where I know the pi symbol is. There's pi. So pi minus the sine inverse of 1/3. So that's going to be, check my mode. Oh, I lost it. Dang it. Try it again. Pi minus sine inverse 1/3. So 2.8016 should be that answer. So you have, like I said, a couple of those in WebAssign or the lab manual where you do have to use that button. And so you have to pay attention to the other quadrants. And you can see my diagram. If it's in quadrant 3, you go pi plus the reference angle. If it's in quadrant 4, 2 pi minus the reference angle, like that. So that's how you use the calculator. And that's all I got for you. Let's click stop.